Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something, where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. So with that in mind, let's jump right in to this week's episode of Becoming Something.
What's up, podcast world? It's your boy JP in the podcast studio with Kathy and Nate.
Hello.
And don't forget, you can text in your question, 254-218-3784. That's Kathy's cell phone, 254-218-3784. If you're any like sleazy dudes trying to call Kathy, her husband's huge.
And he's in the room.
And like, I mean, is a just straight killer. Like, he's got the throat punch down.
Totally.
So you
can call too, leave a voicemail if you want your voice to be on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
You can call that number as well. Text it, leave a voicemail.
It's fun to hear
It makes the
from you guys.
podcast better.
That voice you're listening to is Nate Hilgenkamp. The other one is Kathy Davidson. They're here with me.
Yeah.
I know that's mind-blowing.
Wow.
People are like, dude, I can't believe Nate and Kathy.
They're still there.
Crazy
We've been doing this a
town.
long time, bro.
Dude, your husband, speaking of your husband, he's an all-star the other day when I got here at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
to record. I was so sick, man. So sick. But he
so
made it
bad
happen.
for you.
Dude, it's food poisoning.
I don't know how it was.
Yeah. Food poisoning, man.
That's the worst kind, man.
Because he's an adventurous eater.
That's true.
It wasn't that adventurous.
just
It
eat
was
at
just
Chick-fil-A
it
like
was a
us,
burrito. It was a burrito, man, but it took me out.
And you still preached a sermon. I'll never get over it.
Throw it 4 times.
Yeah, that's impressive.
4 times in the sermon.
I hope you don't expect that.
I
of
didn't.
me.
I didn't know it
That's
was
insane.
bad.
You didn't?
Yes.
I didn't know. I didn't know it was 4 times.
Yes.
You didn't watch the deal?
Every time he cut away, that's.
1 underwear change. I'm just saying, man, people know me for my authenticity and transparency. I'm just like, feels like I need to put that out there. I was convicted. Like, God was like, you going to keep that to yourself?
I mean, you could have kept it to yourself.
I've never met a more authentic person
We
in my
didn't
life.
need to know that.
It
We
was,
can assume.
it was
We
tough,
all have
man.
had the stomach bug before.
It was
we
real
know.
tough.
I don't want to say this.
Don't say it, Nate.
I like haven't really.
Shut.
I know. I feel like the Davidsons are
We
like
get
sick
it
all the time.
monthly.
You've never had the stomach bug?
Like I could not tell you the last time I've thrown up.
No.
Like I think it's been
And you have
7
kids.
years.
No.
Like
Really?
Yeah, before I got married. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. I mean, typically,
What
like
does
Adelie's
it do?
around
Does
the
it
kids.
go the other way? Did you say typically Adelie's with the kids?
Yeah, she's
and
with her
you're not?
kids. I'm working, so
I hadn't thrown up in 7 years?
I don't think I've thrown up since I've been married.
We truly get it
Maybe
every
8.
6 weeks. Someone's
To-
throwing
I
up.
know, I'm
Literally this
I'm
week.
like, oh, they're missing life group again because
Oh,
they're
shut up.
sick.
I know, dude.
Yeah.
Wow,
Like,
of
That's what-
course.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
That's how they roll.
Sometimes
right
I'm
now.
like, go catch a bug, kids. I don't want to
Good.
go to
I
life
don't want
group
to see
tonight.
Nate.
I
Go
don't-
get
I
something.
cannot see
Go
him.
get something.
Just come back.
Yeah.
Judith, he is sick today, but on
That's
the
her
way
kid.
here, yeah. But not stomach bug, strep, praise God, gets me antibiotics.
That's cool. You got biblical names.
Yeah,
Judah.
thank you.
That's super holy.
Poor Jack. But on the way here, he goes, do you think it's because I licked dirt yesterday?
Oh,
That might be.
what
That
in
could
the
be it.
world?
That could be it, man.
He said everyone was daring me to do it.
Oh man, sometimes you lick dirt and you go down.
Yep.
If I had $1 for every time, that's how you don't throw up because
Yeah,
you
you
never
don't
licking
lick
the dirt. Why don't you? You don't know what you're missing out on, man.
Nate, you could be throwing up all
gotta
the
lick-
time like us.
you gotta lick
Just go
dirt.
eat some dirt.
How much for you to lick the bottom of my shoe? You got to go bottom to top
Yeah,
with your tongue, just like.
I would do that.
I think $10,000.
$10,000?
100.
$100?
I would do that for 100 right now.
Why would you
100?
like? Why would you do that for $100?
That's $100 I didn't have.
Matt said, "Don't."
So
What's the
what
worst
was
that can
what was the
happen?
thing that we
I
talked about,
I
like
would do it
shaving
if
your
you
head?
dared me to
From the
do
back.
it. That's the problem.
That's the thing with you sevens. You're
Yeah,
like,
if you
I'll do
just
whatever
dare
for
me,
anything.
I'll do it,
Oh
man.
yeah, because you
Was it-
threes, y'all are super.
What was the
Yeah,
hair?
super healthy.
the threes? Yeah.
You would never do it. People would look down on
Well,
you.
didn't we say something about a haircut of you like buzzing your hair and
Yeah,
you're like, I'll do it
hair
for
feels
$5
different.
or something?
No, I would never
I don't
mess
exactly
my hair up.
remember, but
Hair is
really.
different.
How
Yeah.
much to shave your head
No, that's,
right now?
That's,
How much?
No,
No,
I've
how
actually never
much?
been so happy about my hair.
How much though? How much?
How much, Matt? 100.
100,000. You'd shave your head
Yeah,
right
I
now.
could
Would you
wear-
do it for 50,000?
No, 100. That's what.
But not for 50.
That's what Matt, the
Like
head
a
of my household,
brand
said.
new
Man,
Pretty much almost any car
Well,
you
we
want.
kind of do want to renovate our house. Okay,
50,000.
maybe.
You good? You shave it?
Sure. You're not going to do that. Who's going to pay me that?
Would you do it for 20,000?
No, for sure no. I see what you're doing.
20,000.
No.
okay,
Is,
that's
is a
crazy.
lot of renovations to the house.
No.
To shave, like, how
nothing.
long would it take for your hair to grow? I mean, that's like
A
2
long
months, maybe.
time.
Just wear a hat every day.
How
I
long?
would
And you got
wear
20
I
grand.
would
Because this
wear
is like, I don't know, 3 months.
Yeah, it would take a long time, Nate, and I don't think
I
I've
shaved my
never
eyebrow
had
off
short
one
hair
time.
like that. I would.
Last
I
week,
wouldn't do
last week
that.
in our staff meeting, JP just like, oh, it was so not kind of him.
I don't even
What
know what
did
he's going to
he
say, but it's not true.
He forces us to give something up for an entire
Oh,
year.
did you decide to give something up this
I
year,
don't know.
Nate?
We'll see. And he's like,
He never
he's
has.
like, how many of you could make it through the whole year if I gave you $10,000? I'm like, yes, I'm gonna do it. Absolutely. He's like, I was just kind of wondering. I'm like, what do you know? I'm like, come
Your
on.
motive,
I thought-
man.
and then he said,
Reveal.
actually,
Colors.
Nate, I want you to pay like everyone on staff $1,000. So
I want
it's
you
just
to give something up, Nate.
What was your thing? What'd you give up this
I
year?
haven't decided. No, I gave it fried chicken.
Fried chicken.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
You
Yes.
gave that up?
Yeah. So like if I go to Chick-fil-A,
That's actually really.
thank you.
hard for
I
you.
appreciate
Have you had
that.
any?
Like this
fried
morning, we
chicken?
had Chick-fil-A to celebrate something,
Yeah.
and I had to get some grilled thing. And I sit down with it, and I'm sitting next to Ann, and she goes, "That smells awful." I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
fine, I'll just throw it away."
Wow.
know,
Just
see?
throw it away. Don't worry
Well,
about the kids that don't have
ate
food to
most of it.
eat.
Wow.
Yeah. Man,
Gosh.
you guys.
Nate,
are
I
the
am proud of
worst.
you because one year
Thank
you
you.
said, I'm giving up not reading my Bible.
Yeah.
And I
Did
was
I
like,
really?
we are supposed to read our Bible, so I'm very
It's
confused.
pretty much like a scumbag.
So one year I gave up alcohol, which I don't drink that much, but
And then you decided you didn't need to give
well,
it up?
but then like 3 months in, we're staying at a hotel. They slip something under the door that says like 1 free glass of wine.
That's
so,
it. That's all it took.
oh, I'm like,
That's
this
all.
is
Hey,
a
it looked
sign.
Sign from the
pleasing,
Lord.
appeals to
No,
the
it
eye.
was a test from the
Good-
Lord, and
good
you
for
failed
food.
And like
it,
Adley's
bro.
pregnant, so she can't have it. So I'm like, I'm gonna go pick
Might
that
as well
up.
take one
and
for
then
the team.
and then I like finish, and she's like, "Aren't you gonna give up alcohol for the year?" I was like, "I was."
Yeah.
But
Man of deep
Honestly,
convictions,
I was
guys.
going to fast the other day, and
Like-
I didn't realize it, and I ate some of my kids' goldfish, and I was
Like-
like, well, just
Like
gotta
if
go for
Nate,
it at
like
this
if
point.
Nate had the government secrets, and somebody was like, "We're gonna torture you,"
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, he
to
would
get
never.
those secrets,
I
like-
would
never
give it
hold
up
them.
so fast.
like they would be like, "How about we give you a chicken nugget?" And you're like, "Okay."
Oh, if
I
it's
mean,
fried.
that makes sense.
That must be from
that
the
makes
Lord.
sense. Yeah, it's a gift from the Lord. Oh man,
Nate, you're
what are
such a good friend.
What are we supposed to talk about right now?
That you could work on some things.
Oh,
What's the question?
listen. So Kathy and I are in life group together.
Yeah.
The person who needs to be a better friend is Kathy Davidson. So we're gonna talk about how to be a better friend.
Wow.
Someone who what's the person's name who sent that question in?
Okay, Kayla.
Yeah.
You
Anyway,
emailed
like
us in July, and Nate said
To-
we will get back to you on this shortly.
Listen,
She's
there are
been
so
waiting
many
since
amazing
last
questions that
July.
people send in, and we only have an episode a week, so it's hard to reach everything. So she's talking about, man, our friendship isn't the best, like different circles, maybe moved away.
How do you keep godly friendships thriving? I thought that was a
how do
cool
you keep
phrase.
godly
Yeah.
I was like,
friendships
man, y'all are outing her. Does she want you to share her name? As she like talks
Oh, my
about,
I know.
I've got this friend that I don't like anymore.
No, hers was more
No,
like,
she
how
didn't
do
say that. I'm
you
kidding.
There's
keep-
lots of Kayla's, so
Yeah, I said her last
if you're like, is
name.
this my friend Kayla? It's not.
Okay, so
Sorry,
what's the question? I
Kayla.
still lost it.
Like, how do you be a
Kayla
good?
doesn't like her friends.
Yeah,
What?
how do
Do
you
you
be
think
a
you're a
good?
good friend, Nate?
No,
Do you think you're a good godly?
no, man, he's not a good friend. That's not his strong suit. He's got some. But that's not his.
I'm just
That's
gonna
not
drink
top
my
five.
drink.
Okay, but why do you say that? Like, why?
Because
why-
you're so incredibly selfish,
Oh my God.
self-centered, egotistical, narcissistic for sure.
I think he's joking at this point.
But like, people want to be friends with me, so that like that's cool.
It's all that counts, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
like,
I have a question. How many good godly friendships do you need?
It says that a man of many companions comes to ruin, but there's a friend that sticks closer to a brother.
So we just need
Proverbs
one?
18.
So depth is better than
Person of many friends comes to ruin.
breadth.
Yes, depth is
the word.
better than breadth.
Do you-
Is that word?
I
I
feel
don't know
like
what that word
Maybe
means.
I feel like
but-
that flies in the face of kind of what we see in culture because pop pop culture or the social media, it's like you kind of want to be at everyone's 40th birthday
Well, it's like
party.
last week. We talked about that last week. It's like your phone.
You're just saying that because you were just at a
You
party.
pursue the
Yes, but-
counterfeit. You pursue the counterfeit.
But it's like we think we need so many. I can get so caught up in this when I see people hanging out without me.
I
I'm
still
like,
don't know the question though. What's the question? What's
So
Kayla
how do you be a
asking?
good friend to someone? Like
That's the
well,
question.
I was asking a different one, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's why
In
I'm
that
lost
moment.
right now.
We're just
I don't
talking
know where
about
she's taking it.
friendships in general. I was trying to get to
Well, what's
like,
Kayla's question?
oh, how to keep godly friendships thriving when
Okay.
life is crazy.
Yeah. So I think we give up too easy. I mean, there are people. Jenny Allen says this, and she just talks about how like one person will say, "Hey, I'm trying so hard. I'm pursuing them. Like they're not doing anything
Yeah.
in return, and
Yeah.
it's like I'm and the world will be like, oh, it's a toxic friendship. Cut them off. But then when you talk to the other friend, they're like, hey, I'm drowning right now. Like I just lost my father. This just went. I just got so sick. I'm in deep debt. I can't pay rent. So you never really know what someone's carrying.
Uh-huh.
And I think we're so quick to just like cut them off. And so in the Gospels, there are these guys that carry this man on a mat,
Yes.
and
Such a
you
good
you can
story.
just imagine like if you showed up to life group, and someone is like, they're there to be in your small group, and you've got to carry them everywhere they go. Like that's your lot in life. It's like they can't walk. I've got to carry them. And these guys, they do everything they can to get this guy closer to Jesus. They even take him to the roof and lower him down. It's like that's a good friend. It's not always a give and take relationship. And the whole world right now is talking about boundaries and toxic people and toxic relationships and cut them off and end the relationship with this, that. It's like, man, maybe if that's necessary for you to like be mentally sane. But my hope is that you would be so strong in your relationship with Jesus that sometimes you're able to give 90% if somebody else is just able to give 10.
What if you feel like you're the one always giving the 90%?
Yeah.
Like, what if you feel like you're the one carrying everyone's burden?
I think this is really unpopular, like super hot take. I think that it would be awesome if we could find joy in giving the 90%. And I think the world has kind of flipped it on its head. It's like, hey, everything's gamified. And so if you're giving more than 50% and they're giving less than 50%, then write them off, blow them
That's
off,
not
cut
fair.
them
But
off. Boundaries.
who's like filling you up if you're
Right.
the
Yeah,
one giving up?
Jesus. I mean, I think ideally, and this is again a really unpopular take, Jesus. There are exceptions to this. Boundaries. When I think of the word boundaries, it's like, hey, I'm not going to continue to let you hurt me. Okay, I'm not going to continue to let you hurt
Yes.
me. But man, this word hurt, it used to mean like punch me in the face, like cut my eye open, like kick me in the stomach, like hurt. And now it includes so much emotional hurt. And it's hard to know, like, what if we're too fragile? Like, what if we get emotionally hurt by something that we shouldn't get emotionally hurt by? Who's having that conversation?
Interesting.
Right? And I think we have to be aware of that and take a true assessment. Because, like, sometimes my kids are like, hey, I'm hurt, and I don't want to be like, well, you shouldn't be, but I do want to raise resilient kids. Like, they're like,
Yes.
man, they really hurt my feelings. And like, if their emotional response don't match the infraction, don't match the transgression, like
Right.
they're there on the ground, like beating
Yes.
the ground with their fist and screaming and crying and rolling around in anguish because someone took their crayon. It's like, whoa, you got to learn resilience. And that's the whole Coddling of the American Mind, which is an amazing book on the topic. So there's one thing that I think makes people a better friend. Anybody know what it is? Jesus for sure, but that's not what I was thinking about.
I mean, selflessness.
Kind of. Close.
Serving.
It's not the word I was thinking. Serving.
Sacrifice.
Humility.
Sacrifice. Humility.
Ah,
Yeah.
I think humility
totally.
is the oil that relationships run on.
That's great.
And so like you have to, it requires a lot of humility. And so if you're constantly the victim, if you're driving down the road, if you are the person that is like, hey, I value relationships based on what they can do for me, that's all the spirit of the air. It's all satanic. And you want to take a real audit of your own heart and realize like, wait, I don't have real relationships. I just have bargaining chips. Like I'm just using people all the time.
Yeah.
And the enemy is he's having his way with you.
Yeah.
You need to be able to like love people who can do nothing for you in return.
I think a sign of humility is being able to celebrate people's wins as well. Like Adelie recently quit her job where she got paid to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And
Now she just
like
has a
last
harder
night,
job with
she had
no
friends throw her like a retirement party where they like dressed
So
up as grandmas
sweet.
and like.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute.
Totally. So like they're like celebrating for her. Like
Dude,
that's awesome.
that's
Where
fun.
if someone told me, hey,
Was it invitation in the mail or was
Yeah,
it a
I'm like,
text? I'm
where
just trying to
was
think of
mine?
like,
But
where?
that's
How come I
fine.
didn't get the?
oh yeah. Well, it was
is
only
it
girls.
party?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
And,
Kathy should have
Yeah,
been there, but
it's
that's
fine.
cool.
I'm
Where,
sure
like,
she's
if a
fine.
we'll,
friend-
It's fine.
we'll talk about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah,
now I'm
whatever,
like
yeah.
so uncomfortable.
She's a
Man.
little old for that crew.
Okay.
But,
Wow.
Yeah,
It's
you
a
hit your
grandma party. I
30s
thought
and
she'd fit in.
Yeah.
but it's like if someone told there is something real to the like selfishness ego thing. Where if someone told me, hey, I'm quitting my job to stay at home, I'd be like, super cool. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
you
awesome.
would
And
be.
wouldn't think about it again. I would not think, okay, how can I celebrate this?
Yeah.
Like even you coming out with a book, I'm like, man, that is great.
Yeah.
But there's another step.
When's the last time you had the thought of like, dude, I'm gonna blow it out for this person?
Yeah, probably Adelie, but even then, why
Or you got her coffee cup or something.
I got her coffee cup that you gave her to her.
That I
Yeah.
helped give it to her.
Yeah, man. I think it's humility. So like, here's a really insensitive conversation. If someone's going through infertility,
Yeah.
okay, this happens, right? And then they get pregnant. It's like that can be crushing to someone.
Totally.
But I have seen those people. Sometimes I see those people really fight hard to celebrate them.
Man, someone's
it's
coming to mind right now.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Like it's really beautiful at a sacrifice to themselves. And if you can't, like it's okay. You're human and God gave you the full suite of emotions, but you just want to take that head on and say, I can't right now. I am so deep in my grief that I can't celebrate you, but I know that I should be able to. And like we have those conversations as Christians. And I think sometimes people like they hear that and they're like, oh man, you can do that, Pastor, or it's like some superhuman strength. It's not. There's nothing superhuman about it.
Yeah.
It's just the fullness of being human. Like you're just like it's being the best human you can be and being surrendered to the Spirit and doing things by the strength of God. But yeah, I think to be a good friend, it requires a lot of humility.
That's good.
And then on the opposite of like celebrating, it's being there for them when they are going through the infertility or the job loss or whatever. Like, how can you go the extra mile to do something when most of the time I'm like, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything.
You guys know I've said this about relationships, but I think we put an overvalue on chemistry. Like we would rather be friends with people who cheer for the same football team as us.
Yes.
And I think in the kingdom of God, that they have a faith is the priority. And so like our deepest friendships are the followers of Jesus and the diversity of interests, the diversity of personalities, all the other diversity that is socioeconomic, ethnicity, all of that diversity can be beautiful if we have Jesus in common and we fight for the relationship. And so it's like, who are your neighbors? Like you got to value proximity. You got to value the people around you. Who do you go to church with? Not just who has common interest to me. I think the world, the spirit of the air, both in romantic relationships, but also friendships, has over-indexed on the common interest.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. And then you end up missing out on people who actually would be really good friends, who love God and can make you love God more. Like we just look for people who are exactly like us.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous place to be.
I'm not a fan of the term best friend.
Yeah, I was about to ask.
James 2 warns us about favoritism. So it's like a lot of times when we say best friend, we mean the person that I like the most or I'm closest to, like the person we give the most favoritism to. I think of it as like best kind of friend. Who's like the best friend to you? Meaning like who's really good at being your friend?
Yeah.
Who's the one that shows up? Who's the one that throws the retirement party? Who's the one that shows up, and drops off the chicken noodle soup when you're not feeling well? Like who does that? Like that, what does it mean to be a good friend, to like meet someone's needs, to anticipate them? And like that all takes a lot of humility. And so the guy on the mat, I'll go back to that, like he had really great friends that said, hey, we're going to stop at nothing to get you closer to Jesus.
But there are people that I like being around. It's easier to be around. And there's people that I don't like being around.
Yeah.
Why should I feel guilty wanting to be around the people that I like being around?
I don't think you need to feel guilty. I don't think you need to feel guilty at all. I mean, and some of those relationships are forged over time, like college, like you do stuff with your old friends,
Yeah.
right? So I don't think you need to feel guilty about that at all. I think you should feel convicted if you don't know your neighbors.
Yeah.
So if you're hanging out with your college buddies at the expense of never inviting your neighbors over, like God, Acts 17 talks about God's determined our boundaries. He's determined when we would live and where we would live, and he does so on purpose. He puts us in places, like his boundary lines have fallen in pleasant places, Psalm 16. So what does it look like for us to, influence those people toward the kingdom of God? So we have people that we do ministry with, and we have people that we do ministry to. All of our relationships as a believer are bifurcated, separated into those two categories. Who do I do ministry with, and who do I do ministry to? And if they're not a Christian, then I'm doing ministry to them. If they are a Christian, then I'm doing ministry with them. And we just keep on our minds the things of God. Like sometimes, like the tactics of the enemy is to get us lost in this world. And so if all of our relationships are built around a common bond for a team or something just worldly, then it's like those are really superficial relationships. They're not going to matter 100 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's good to bring the Lord into this, like asking him and praying, God, your neighbor is a great example, but like, who am I to go deep with? Like, who should I invest time in? Who's going to make me look more like you, rather than just like thinking fleshly, this person's really fun, or they seem cool, or I want to get to know that person because they seem like they have influence and they seem important, or they're fun and I want to be around them. It's like, God, who's going to make me look more like you? That's who you're going to become, like the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yep.
So are we
Say that
really
again.
thinking about who we're spending time with? Because you're going to become like the 5 people you spend the most time with.
You're the average
Choose
of
wisely.
the average of your 5 closest friends. The other things I would say here is just like caution of the opposite sex, especially if you're married, right? Like you've got those friendships of the opposite sex get redefined, and there has to be healthy boundaries there. If there's a tendency or desire to hide anything from your spouse, you're going too far. That's a red flag. You need to turn around. So if you ever hide anything from your spouse, you're out of bounds. And then just even for single friends, be mindful that usually one heart is drifting in those co-ed relationships. And I'm learning this even through in our own family. We're having that conversation with our daughters who are moving toward dating age a lot. And just like, you want to have a best friend who's a guy, and it's just like, it's not, usually doesn't work that way. Is it possible? Sure. Jesus was friends with Mary and Martha. You can have a friendship with the opposite sex. When you start spending a lot of time with them and texting late and those kinds of things, almost always one heart is drifting one direction. So you need to be mindful of that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us have friendships that are just not very deep. Like we will talk about sports or something you watched on TV. I don't know what girls talk about. They spilled the tea. I don't know.
I can't tell you.
But there's this shallowness to it. And I've noticed, I love every question that people send in. Really, 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 really do.
Yeah.
But people send in a lot of personal questions and say things like, I can't ask anyone else this, or don't want to share this with anyone else. And it's like, I don't know you, and I don't know this situation. There should be people in your life where if you don't have people that you feel comfortable to ask that question with, I would do all you possibly can do to change that.
Yeah, I think people might even have good godly people around them, like even in their life group, small group, they serve together at church. Like it's the right kind of person to be friends with, and those friendships aren't going as deep as God would like us to because we're not being authentic. And then that leaves us lonely and isolated. So I don't know. I think that's a great point, Nate. Like if that's you, if you feel like you've got the right people in your life, but you still feel like, man, I don't feel like this is a deep friendship, ask intentional questions. Like you be the one that takes the conversation to the next level. Share your stuff.
This is like a way the enemy constantly comes after me.
Oh, yeah?
Like people don't know. And I feel like sometimes I'm like, man, like when I'm attacked by the enemy, he's like, do you even have a friend?
Oh.
And it's like, I've got lots of friends, but he's like, yeah, but is there anybody that really knows you that's like not on payroll, that, that whole thing. And so I think it is important, like for us to have those deep relationships. What?
That's why you don't pay me.
Yeah, well, you're not a friend either, but it's already established.
I think isolation and loneliness are way bigger problems than we realize. And I would say if you if you feel this way and you think, oh, I don't have a best friend, or who would I invite to my birthday party, or da-da-da-da-da, it's like other people around you are feeling this too. It just takes someone to take the first step. I literally had 2 women back to back Friday and Saturday this past weekend tell me how incredibly lonely they were and how they were looking for a friend. And I was like, I want to be your like I want to. I just need you to tell me
so
that.
I feel this all the time in young adult ministry where like this exact same thing has happened a lot of times where it's like, hey, either I went to the young adult ministry or I was at a party or whatever. I was with the other young adults and no one engaged with me and I'm really mad, which I understand. And you can go engage with someone else.
Straight
Like
up.
you don't have to go wait, hey,
for
who's
them.
going to help me?
Straight
Who's going
up.
to serve me? You
Yep.
go ask them a question.
Be the friend that you're looking for.
Yeah,
You know?
because they're looking for a friend too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I just keep thinking of like Jesus, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but
Yep.
to serve and give his life away. So even as we think about friendships, like how can you initiate first? How can you be humble? How can you serve your friends? How can you reach out and take the conversation deeper? Like you go first.
Man, it's like I'm telling you, the victim mentality is so prominent right
Yes.
now, the spirit of the air. And people are like, I just feel like nobody. And it's like, just you do it. But this is the really practical thing to end with is like, who is a great friend? Like everybody knows a great friend, like someone who's a great friend. They get so preoccupied with the needs and the situations of others that they like lose themselves in it and they enjoy it. All right. They're just really great friends. Like all you have to do is do what they do.
yeah.
Like they're modeling it for you. Just do what they do. Everybody knows somebody who's a great friend. Do what they do. But it starts in your head. Like if your thoughts are always about yourself, preoccupation of self, it's a fast track to getting sick. I mean, it is the bed that mental illness grows in, man.
Which again is why it's so important to like the first step in friendship is to have a friendship with God, which I know like sounds cliche, but I'm like only until you're going to him as your source for friendship, authenticity, relationship, connection.
Yep.
Out of that is going to overflow health and care for other people.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, I love you guys. Y'all are my friends.
are we friends?
Yeah, we're friends.
When you think that, just remember the two of us.
I think
are
we
your
need to
friends.
go to
On a
Mexico
trip.
together.
I agree.
Listen, I've been on staff for 100 years now, and he's vacationed with everyone else on staff. So listen, we have these
taking
things.
you to
We
so
have
many
no
things.
whatever.
I've never
We
done
have these things where
All
he
right,
picks
guys,
a name
it's
from a
been
hat, and he
real.
never
So
picks my
glad
name. He
y'all
always picks his
jumped
favorite
in.
people.
We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something, where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. To find out more, visit becomingsomething.com.